author, columnist, editor-in-chief of LibertyNation.com, talk show host, and conservative policy advocate.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Happy New Year and welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's special edition, we are looking forwards into 2026. What is on the legislative agenda, what's going to happen with the midterms, and a whole lot more. Please remember, Liberty Nation Radio is sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news, analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. And a happy new year to you from Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides, and we're joined for this New Year's edition by Liberty Nation economics editor, Mr. Andrew Moran. Happy New Year to you, Andrew.
Happy New Year.
You sound happy. You sound like you've just landed in 2021. That's the level of enthusiasm he's got. And inflation is not happening. Inflation is happening, but it's mild. Inflation's here and it's huge, but inflation's great. That's the kind of 2021 attitude. But here we are. We're in 2026, and it's a whole new world. It's a whole new year. So, Andrew, I want to talk about what is going to happen and what might happen through 2026. And specifically, I think the first part to talk about for what is going to happen would be there are new taxation systems in place. And so there'll be a lower tax burden on the American people. Is this the big thing to look forward to in 2026?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's across the board. Low, middle, and high income households, they're getting tax cuts, and that's in addition to, let's say, the no tax on tips and all the other tax elimination of taxes or tax credits or tax benefits like the Trump tax accounts. Those are definitely positive. So you should start seeing higher real inflation adjusted wage growth throughout 2026. That is, if the U.S. economy stays intact and there aren't any consequences from the 2025 trade agenda.
Okay, so we've got the tax things to look forward to. There's also let's do a positive and a negative, a positive and a negative, and get through these ones.
Sure.
So on the negative side, there's a whole heap of American debt that needs to be refinanced, right? And currently, with the interest rates, and the FOMC meeting is coming up not too long away, so there might be a cut there, but there's a lot of debt that needs to be dealt with, right?
Yeah, so just on the Fed part, if you look at the futures market, investors are not expecting a rate cut until at least the April meeting, and the Fed forecasts only one rate cut in 2026. Now, when it comes to the negative, yes, about $8 trillion worth of debt will need to be refinanced at higher interest rates, so which means that the U.S. federal interest payments will be firmly above $1 trillion again heading in throughout the fiscal year 2026 and heading into fiscal year 2027. And of course, national debt, I mean, that's going to be $39 trillion soon. And then, look at it this way. It took the United States 200 years to accumulate its first $1 trillion. Now the federal government is accumulating $1 trillion every couple of months, every 3 months, maybe. So these higher debt payments are just going to keep going up and up and up.
They should follow I believe it was Groucho Marx's suggestion to make a nickel worth 8 cents, and then a family could essentially live off that same nickel for the rest of their
lifetime. Yes.
So that's one up, one down. What else isn't up for 2026?
Well, if you're a GDP bro, we need more GDP, bro. GDP, bro.
I'm a GDP per capita, bro, rather than a GDP in general.
But those.
Sorry, if I may interrupt, Andrew. There's a great story about this that I think our listeners will appreciate. So, two economists are walking through the woods, and they see a pile of bear feces. And one economist says to the other, "I'll give you $100 to eat that." And so the other economist, he eats the bear feces and gets the $100. And then they're walking along a bit further, and then they see another pile of bear poo, and the economist who ate the first lot said, "Well, I'll give you $100 to eat that." And so he says, "Okay." And so he takes the $100, and then they're there and they're talking to each other. And one of them says to the other, "What have we really achieved? We've not made any extra. We've not made the $100 each. We've both eaten bear poo." And the other economist turns around and said, "Well, actually, that's not true. We made $200 extra for the GDP."
I do too. Frequent X. I also patronize X platform. That's all I appreciate. But that is a great point. Years ago, Walter Block made that exact same case. He's been on Swamponomics TV. I've interviewed him at least twice. I've interviewed for LibertyNation.com, and he's made that case too. That yes, great GDP, but if you build a massive ship, and that's going to add to GDP, but will it lead to long-term value if no one is using that ship? So GDP, yes, I 100. But the thing is that everyone relies on GDP. Markets run by GDP. If the GDP comes at 4%, the market's gonna go apoplectic and cheer that and be happy about it. But so that's why you have to follow GDP. I mean, I'm not a GDP person either, but people love GDP. But that said, all the forecasts have been revised up for the GDP. The Federal Reserve, that was a big thing at the December meeting because the Summary of Economic Projections revised its GDP forecast for 2026 from 1.9% in September to 2.3% for the whole year. So that was quite a big revision. Private sector forecast, they also say one big thing that's going to happen for the GDP boost is the one big beautiful bill, or OBBB. It's fun saying that. But anyway, so yeah, all the GDP forecasts, they're expected to be up. And 2025 was a good example of the volatility in GDP based on policy, because in the first quarter you had that contraction, which is driven by that record high imports. But then the collapse of imports led to 3.8% increase in GDP in the second quarter. Third quarter is also a big. Fourth quarter was okay. So yeah, GDP that's going to be quite increasing in 2026.
Okay, and so moving from a positive GDP, what's our next big loser coming down the pipeline for 2026?
Well, I hate to say it though, but I don't know. I'm so concerned about the whole AI bubble thing. I mean, compared to during the dot-com bubble, people did not talk about bubbles at all. People never thought that pets.com would be, or etoys.com would be the next big thing. So nobody talked about it. But now today, every single day are saying AI bubble, AI bubble. It makes you think, well, maybe there isn't so much a bubble because all these companies who are investing in AI have strong balance sheets. They're using their cash stockpile to invest in AI. But there's just something about it. I mean, this is a huge bull market. It's an ultra bull market. At the same time, it feels so fragile. It feels as if something is going to break any moment because of AI, because it's very circular too. I mean, it's not widespread adopted. You look at some of the numbers, small businesses aren't using AI. It's not a large corporation right now. The average individual want to pay for Gemini or, Grok? Will they be willing to pay as much money as they needed to justify the trillions of dollars in investment? Yeah. I think that's a negative just to monitor. Maybe it may not happen, but it's still good to keep an eye on.
I think the average consumer is not really the market, right? It's developing technologies that can be created along with the AI built into them with, I guess, options for upgrading not only the base operating systems that would incorporate AI, but also there'd be almost like a von Neumann machine, as it were, recreating itself again and again. But yeah, I don't think that they're looking for any of their market share through the consumer market, at least not directly, because people have AI in there. I don't know, they have AI in their fridges, on their light switches, on their TVs. And, I spend at least 20 minutes a day trying to remove all the AI things that get put on my computer without my knowing about it. And it's a chore, I tell you, it's a chore. But consumers, I don't think they're the primary market. They're not going to be paying for the AI, except for the cost of the goods that incorporate AI go in. But of course, as we know, the more that something is done, the cheaper it comes down, right? The prices come down on that. So what's the biggest thing that you personally are looking forward to in 2026, Andrew Moran?
Well, I'm going to have to say inflation, because if inflation does keep falling, let's say it goes to 2.1%, because Jerome Powell, he said that's going to peak in the first quarter. So if it goes to, let's say, 2% and aggregate inflation is not impacted by tariffs, then I guess you have to say, well, the whole economic data and research and commentary on tariffs may be wrong after all, because tariffs are supposed to be, they're supposed to push prices up. But if they're causing the exact opposite, where inflation is moderating at 2%, then you could say, okay, well, so tariffs may be a one-time price increase at least on the aggregate level, and two, that tariffs are not as persistently inflation as economists had argued for so many decades.
Well, that is something to look forward to. Andrew Moran, Happy New Year to you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio. I remain your host, Mark Angelides. We continue our conversations with Liberty Nation's enterprise reporter, Mr. Joe Schaefer. Happy New Year to you, Joe.
Happy New Year.
So, Joe, obviously this time of year we like to talk about things that are going forward. You know, what will be the dominating topics of the year ahead, the 2026 year ahead. So, Joe, I guess the question is, in 2026, can the center hold?
Yeah, I think that is really my number one frame of mind. It's been for several years, but it is really starting to unravel on these people. And like you were talking about how Europe can be kind of like a harbinger for things that happen in America. So you look at what NATO Director Mark Rutte recently said. You know, Mark Rutte is the embodiment of the European establishment, the European Union establishment. He is like the Emmanuel Macron of the Netherlands. He was established in that government for years, eventually lost his power, immediately got his reward for services to the establishment with his NATO post. And look what he said the other day. Europe must be ready for another war on the level that our parents and grandparents fought. Meaning World War I, the slaughterhouses of World War I and World War II. That is what these people will do to distract themselves from their vast unpopularity. It's in poll after poll. I've written about it numerous times. With every passing year, the establishment gets more unpopular, yet they continue to cling to power in all these nations in Western Europe. And it's also, it's so interesting. Can they keep doing it in America? And it's not just politicians in America. What I call the entire credentialed class in America is losing influence. It's not by the year, it's not by the month, it's by the day. With every passing day, they're losing more influence. Academia, healthcare, science, entertainment, whatever. These people who once had so much sway, the American people just don't believe them anymore. They've lost so much credibility with the American people. How do they get it back? They're double downing. To me, they're doubling down on their arrogance and on their their idea of you need to listen to us. Don't think for yourself. We're the ones, and they're not offering the American people anything except for knee-jerk, really reflexive criticism of Donald Trump, which does nothing to boost their cause whatsoever. So, what do they have to offer people that will get them back a measure of the respect they have? And to me, the most dominant theme of this year is, well, what are they going to come up with? Because as far as I can see, they don't have anything to offer the people that is going to get their totally lost respect back in any way.
Yeah, so Ronald Reagan said, status quo is Latin for the mess we're in. I've always enjoyed that one from him. But you're right about the unpopularity of these, what they call themselves the centrist leaders, when really they're very much left of center, if not far left in some cases, and especially across Europe. I follow European politics quite a lot, and you have, for example, we have discussed this in last week's show briefly. You have the Reform Party led by Nigel Farage, which is very much a conservative populist party. It's currently polling now. The election's not until 2029, at the latest 2029. But they're currently polling. If you add the Labour Party and the Tory Party together, which are the equivalent of the Democrats and the Republicans, respectively, if you add their polling together, they just equal Reform's current polling, and that's the same for more than 100. The last 100 polls have been exactly the same, and also by membership, Reform is now the largest political party by membership in the United Kingdom. Then you cross the mere 30 miles to France from the UK, and you have Emmanuel Macron is so desperately unpopular. And of course, he's term limited now for the presidency, but he's lost, I believe he's lost 5 prime ministers in the last 12 months because he can't keep a government together. And what we have coming in next year, I guess, or the year after or the next year, is Jordan Bardella now appears to be the front runner, who is Marine Le Pen's protege, who people might remember. who fought against Macron twice in the election. But that is very much a candidate on the right who favors mass deportations of illegal aliens in the country. And so they look set to win in France. And then you go to Germany, where you've got the AfD, and the establishment there is doing everything they can to crush the rise of the Alternative for Deutschland. It's constant media slurs, it's arrest, it's trying to bar them from actually legally holding office, or removing them from positions in their work because they are members of a political party, which is, by popularity, it might well be the most popular party in the country. But I hear you saying here is that they're so unpopular that they need to do something to regain some kind of respect. And I fear that what that will be is not in the best interest of the people, but more in the best interest of what can we do to make the people say, we need the stability back. We need that stability that you've promised, that you represent. And that means leaning into whatever catastrophes happen to take place, doesn't it?
That's an important point. It's a very important point, because they have nothing positive to offer. The only thing they can offer is negativity. Like, hey, it's World War III with Russia. We got to do it. We're going to draft you. Because they have no positive agenda for the people. They have no reason for the people to support them. So it's going to be like, this is an existential crisis. We're all going to die if you don't. And that was a quote by Macron. I wrote an article about that, I believe, in 2024. Support me or there will be civil war, and you can only get away with this for so long. Eventually it's going to reach a tipping point. And this is, to me, is how do they do it in America? How do they prevent real change, real choice? You talk about in Germany, they just ban you. They label you far right extremist and you're not allowed to run in the election. How do they limit the options in America? The primary process. It doesn't exist in most of these elections. The advantage for incumbents is so overwhelming here. And even if an incumbent retires, the party, the incumbent's office is so powerful. It's really not about the politician. It's about the office itself. They handpick the selector. The primary is usually a joke, and you get another establishment candidate with an R or a D even in their name. They use the primary process weapon. So if you want real change in America, the kind of change they want in Europe, and Europe is really buckling down on, if you want that change in America, get involved in the primary process. Even if you're a Democrat or Republican, challenge these incumbents, challenge these established people in the primary. Once they're nominated, it's too late.
Joe Schaefer's wish for 2026. Thanks for being here, Joe.
Thank you.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back on Liberty Nation Radio, head coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I remain your host, Mark Angelides. And we're joined today by Liberty Nation senior political analyst and longtime host of this here radio show, Mr. Tim Dunn. Happy New Year to you, Tim.
Happy New Year, Mark.
I hope all went well. Much champagne was drunken. You choose what state you want the champagne to be in.
What I did, Mark, was I drank responsibly. Yeah, that's it. Responsibly.
There you go. Responsibly.
No, responsibly. So that's what all the liquor manufacturers here in the U.S. They tell you the wonders of their alcoholic beverage, and then they say drink responsibly. Whereas what they really mean is drink early and often.
Like voting, right? In certain states.
Yes. In Chicago.
Early and often.
County, yes.
So, Tim, it's 2026, and I guess the most appropriate topic of conversation for us today would be, what are we looking to in the coming year? What do we expect to happen legislatively? What do we expect to happen judicially? And culturally, I guess, it is an important one as well, and of course, economically. What are the big things you're looking out for in 2026?
Well, I think that most people would agree, and I'm one of those people, that the economy is going to change a lot.
Oh yeah, the One Big
Trump-
Beautiful Bill Act it takes effect. Yeah.
because all the provisions of that One Big Beautiful Bill Act will take effect this year. And that's where you're going to see the impact of it. And you're also going to see the impact of tariffs, for better or worse. That, of course, was a major feature of the first year of Trump's second administration. And now it's going to play out in real time. The sort of shock and awe of the new tariff regime is past. And now changing these tariffs up and down to accommodate various changes in the market, I think it's clear that the midterms are going to hinge on the economy. Of course, the Republicans go into it at a built-in historical disadvantage since they control the trifecta, the White House and both houses of Congress. They're now going to be held responsible for everything that happens, both good and bad.
As they should be, Tim. As they should be. You can't spend they can't spend 4 years railing against Joe Biden, blaming him for everything, and then turn around.
Well, I think that
this isn't our fault.
That statute of limitations is up, I think, on blaming Biden, because Trump said, I will fix the Biden economy. And of course, he made grand promises like he does with everything. But the problem is when you make that kind of grand promise, you have to live up to it. You know, he says we're in the best economy ever, which is what he said in his first term. Okay, but he's going to have to go out and prove it. Nobody is going to be looking back at Joe Biden when they pull the levers later this year, leading up to the November midterms. So the economy is a real X factor, the biggest X factor in all of this. Legislatively, I don't see much of anything, if only because Trump got almost everything basically that he wanted in the 2025 One Big Beautiful Bill.
Although, so if I could interrupt, there is rumor that a bigger, more beautiful bill of some description, I doubt that's going to be the title of it, is in the works as well. But
I think they're going to call it now the really big, beautiful, or the enormous, beautiful bill. They have to find another adjective.
Yeah, or superlatives. I think they've got to go for the superlatives now rather than just the adjectives. So there doesn't seem to be too much. I think you're right. There doesn't seem to be too much left legislatively that is on the Trump agenda. That doesn't mean there's not an agenda within Congress that they, certain bills that they want to get through that Trump will either support or not. But yeah, I think you're right here. What happened was that he put everything into the first One Big Beautiful Bill because he had the push power to get it done then, which he may not have right now because there's a lot of optimism when he came in. Of course, his approval ratings are, I think he's about 9 points underwater as the last check. And please, audience, do go and check out Liberty Nation's Public Square poll tracker. It's a fantastic interactive polling device. It's polling machine, I like to call it. And it's got all the latest, and it's so easy to use and switch between the different things on the issues and everything. Sorry, quick plug for Liberty Nation's Public Square there. But what I think he's done is, as you point out again, all of these things, they were designed in the 2025, they were designed to come in 2026. They were designed to create the headline numbers of 2026, probably around summertime, just when the primaries are decided. Most primaries are decided, for 2026, and that will give the successful primary candidates in the GOP something to campaign on. And of course, Donald Trump is already campaigning. But he's campaigning like he's running for president again. But this time, it's on his economy.
Yes, he is going to devote, he says, and his assistant.
He's doing it already. End of last year, we saw in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, all over the place.
Yes. I think the danger is that he does the same thing that Joe Biden did, which is to say, hey, the economy may not seem so good, but um, it's much better than you think.
Sure.
And he started with that in late 2025. And he said the affordability crisis is a hoax. Now, what he meant was that the Democrats' answer to it is a hoax because they have no answer,
Sure.
in his view. But it comes off as sort of short shrifting the economic pain that people do feel. So he's got to show some results. I mean, there's no question they're not going to take it at face value that things will get better in a third or fourth year of the administration. But I think there's something else that has the potential to really influence the upcoming year. And that is July 4th, 2026.
Sure.
America 250, as we celebrated on libertynation.com, that will be a season, not just a day, but I think a season of celebration and a recalibrating of just what a great nation the United States is. And of course, Trump will be at the center of that. Trump will be highly visible. He will be a force for traditional patriotism. And let's see how the Democrats weigh in on the importance of the 250th birthday of the United States. I would also say that the FIFA World Cup taking place in the United States cannot be understated in terms of its importance, and Trump will be very visible at many venues for the World Cup as well. So it's a very exciting cultural year coming up. And I don't think people are going to vote for a Republican because Donald Trump showed up on July 4th and said patriotic things, but I think it puts people in a different frame of mind. It certainly did in the bicentennial in 1976. People were, it was a major thing. It dictated a lot of the cultural, shall we say, events of that year. And I expect the same thing is going to happen here in 2026.
Yeah, when there's a period of optimism within a country, that usually benefits the sitting party in power, especially when they've got the trifecta, because it's that thing, isn't it? If you've got all the levers of government, if you've got the trifecta, everything's your fault, right? And if people happen to be optimistic and happy because there's this period of celebration, and then the Republicans say, well, everything's good now, right? You feel good. Well, we've got control of all the levers of power. Why would you hand that over? You're feeling good right now. Why not stick with it? No matter how disingenuous that might be, they will.
I think the problem
with the optimism brush.
The problem that Trump has had all along is the same one that Barack Obama had, which is that when he's not on the ballot, his party doesn't do so well.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they did in 2024 and in 2016 when Trump was on the ballot. In 2025 was a bloodbath, although a limited one because there were only really 3 major contests and then a bunch of local races around the country, most of which the outcomes were favorable to the Democrats in one way or another in terms of the movement of the electorate. But with Trump not on the ballot, I think we're going to realize that Trump is Trump. He's not a Republican so much as he's Trump. He's his own brand, and his popularity has not accrued to Republicans writ large. We'll see if that changes. The advantage that the Republicans have is that the Democrats are still in a state of disarray. They're still dominated by the far left. There are forces trying to moderate it, but it may just be that because they're not Republicans and because midterm elections are grievance elections where the people that are angry show up a lot more than the people that I still think it's going to be a pretty steep hill for Republicans to climb to maintain control, especially of the House.
We're actually gonna talk about the elections, the midterms, the House and the Senate, in our next segment. So, audience, don't go anywhere. Be right back.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back on Liberty Nation Radio. I remain Mark Angelides, and Tim Donner remains Tim Donner. And we are continuing our conversation on what to look towards in 2026. And specifically, we just got started talking in the last segment, Tim, about the midterm elections and how we think they'll go. And you mentioned that you see, and it's not just you that sees it, they are, in fact, midterms are grievance elections. So what kind of what kind of turnout do you expect? What kind of overall arching feeling do you get about the November midterms this year?
A lot of careers have been ruined with bad predictions.
Sure.
But
unless you're Jim Cramer, that guy's still around.
Jim Cramer, we had to get him in there. The CNBC tout. I would be surprised if the turnout for midterm elections was unusually high.
Right.
Because, yes, you have Democrats who will be angry at Trump just because they're Democrats and because he's Trump, no matter what he does. As I've said before, he could walk on water, and the headline would be Trump can't swim. So there are some things that Trump just can't control. But I think what will hold down turnout is the fact that the Democrats themselves are at a low ebb in terms of their public approval. They're down lower than they have been in about 30 years, certainly at the lowest approval level of the entire 21st century. And they show no signs of cohesion. They show no signs of a leader emerging who can consolidate the progressive and, quote, moderate wings of the Democratic Party, which is more like traditional liberal and progressive. And so they're still in a state of disarray. So, yes, they're not Republicans, which will accrue to the benefit of Democrats to some degree. But it's not like the Democrats themselves have offered an appealing alternative to the American people. So I think turnout, I wouldn't expect it to set any kind of records.
I'm wondering about this. You talk about the Democratic Party currently being leaderless, essentially. And I wonder if there's something about that, that there are clearly people who want to lead the Democratic Party going into 2028. Their problem is that if they get in now, then if they become the figurehead, the leader of the party, the de facto leader of the party, then all that happens between now and 2028 will fall on their shoulders and weaken them as it comes to a presidential election, because they'll be taking the brunt of everything. So if they raise their head above the parapet early, it's likely to get knocked off by some flying trebuchet. Especially when we consider the approval rating of the Democrats that you just mentioned. I'm not entirely sure it's hit bottom yet. It is absolutely the lowest it's been in this century, but it could go lower, right? Especially if some of Donald Trump's economic policies come to fruition in the way that he expects them to.
Well, I'll tell you this much. We just did a story. Graham Noble wrote it on LibertyNation.com. Actually, it was late last year, in which he talked about Kamala Harris is sending out all the signals that she's going to run again. Well, I can tell you this, if she raises her head above water level, that's not going to do anything to help Democrats. In fact, it seems preposterous to me that she would believe she could actually become president after the years that she spent in Washington and failure of her campaign, which she can blame on Joe Biden. She can blame it on, she only had 107 days to campaign, though you and I are among those who believe if she had twice as much time, she would have lost more decisively than she did. But the point is, a party that's out of power, a party that has lost the trifecta by definition is leaderless. So this happened to the Republicans, particularly in 2009 and 2013 in the aftermath of the two Obama victories. But in 2020, Trump eventually reemerged as the putative leader of the party as they headed for 2024. For the Democrats, who is it? Nancy Pelosi is gone. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, has proven to be, frankly, not ready for.
I would like to point out that, and I always like to do this for Mr. Jeffries, Representative Jeffries, is he has lost more votes for Speaker of the House than any person in history, and I think that's a record that's going to follow him around. Sorry, please carry on. I always like to.
Well, so then, with Pelosi gone and Jeffries inept, and Chuck Schumer as unpopular as he's ever been,
and fighting for his life.
There is no leadership there. And so who emerges? I mean, is it Gavin Newsom? Is it Kamala Harris? Is it a J.B. Pritzker? They're going to start sending out signals, these potential candidates, about their intentions, although undoubtedly they won't announce until after the midterms.
Sure.
We'll probably be sitting here in 1 year, Mark, in 2027 at the turn of the year, and speculating about who's going to get in the race and when.
Yeah.
But, the Democrats, all they can offer now is not being Trump and not being Republicans, because their agenda and their political orientation are both extremely unpopular. They have yet to pivot from the disastrous results of the 2024 election.
Yeah, and I think as history tells us, though, that not being the party in power is probably the best advantage you can get when it comes to winning a midterm, right? It's the inbuilt advantage. Tim,
generally speaking, yes.
Yeah, although I believe there are 2 or 3 exceptions, but 2 or 3 out of 119 Congresses. Tim,
yes.
Final question, just a one-word to it answer. Have you made any New Year's resolutions, and are you going to stick to them?
I have resolved to come up with a New Year's resolution. It's TBD, Mark, to be
decided.
I have resolved to make a resolution.
And
now, does that sound like a politician?
It does. Tim Donner, 2028.
Well, wait a minute. You don't get out of this without telling us your New Year's resolution or resolutions. So let's hear it.
My New Year's resolution is to be a better family man than I was last year, and I intend to stick to it. Tim Donner, thanks ever so much for being here.
Thank you, Mark. Happy New Year.
And that's all we have time for on this special New Year's edition of Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I'd like to thank our guests, Andrew Moran, Joe Schaefer, and Tim Donner, for being here. And of course, thank you, the listeners, who take the time to tune in each and every week. We do appreciate you. Please remember, Liberty Nation does not endorse campaigns, candidates, or legislation. And this presentation is no endorsement.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.